All right, guys, Adam Trigger here. It is Wednesday. It is time for On the Clock. And yesterday is about as frustrating as it gets if you do the media part of this whole business where I did two shows yesterday, did five different plays. Those plays went 4-1. Now, admittedly, some of the stuff, like when WagerTalk gives us the games, like those get assigned. So it's not always necessarily something I have like a super strong opinion in. It's usually the bigger games. So like I am kicking myself for not adding Mississippi State. Didn't have a huge opinion on Wisconsin, but those two get there. Where I'm really upset with myself is like Air Force not being on that when I've sort of been on them regularly at times this year. That was a winner. BYU, I was stubborn and just didn't want to take what I thought was like a stale number, and they won by 100. And then the total of the day fell short. So 4-1 on the free picks. Of course, the 5% play that I appreciate all the support with that. Even though it lost, I still appreciate everyone that came by and picked it up. Nevada, I thought was a great bet, like plus 4.5, went off 3.5, 8-point lead at one point in the first half, 3-point lead at halftime. And they went on a stretch in the second half where I think Colorado State went on a 17-2 run. Unfortunately, Nevada got in a little foul trouble, made the run late, just couldn't get over the hump to get back and get the cover. So we fall short there, and we just move on to today. I've got 4 plays locked in today at WagerTalk. I'm going to talk about one of them here, and I've decided. So I ended up doing a Spaces this afternoon that took a lot longer than I expected. So I'm just going to do the double game here, kind of like we do on the WagerTalk show, since I didn't do the WagerTalk college basketball show today. So no clock. I'm going to do 2 games. We'll break them down in full, and then that'll be it for today. And we'll be back with a 3-pack tomorrow for On the Clock. But I am going to give you one of my client plays, and we'll start there. So let's talk Providence, Georgetown. I played Providence this morning plus 3.5 on some news that. So shout out to Corby Craig, friend of mine. He texted me this morning. He said, Sorber's probably out. He's like, I'm pretty confident Sorber's out. And I instantly threw Providence on my card because Thomas Sorber, I think, is as important to his team as any player to any team in the country. Like Georgetown gets considerably worse on both sides of the ball without Sorber. Defensively, they get much worse. And so the fact that like he's in a walking boot, he's either going to be limited or he's probably just going to be out. And the other thing I think is worth noting too, with some of these teams late February, especially teams that are probably not going to get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament, the final 2 weeks of February really starts to be about getting healthy and making sure that you're playing your best ball, or you're in position to play your best ball for 4 days in early March to try to get to the NCAA tournament. So I would be surprised if Sorber's out there, potentially risking further injury in this game tonight. And again, if he's out, then even where this is at right now at 2.5 or 2, if Sorber's out, Providence should be a favorite in this game. Like that's a no-brainer to me. Providence is absolutely like -1, -1.5 if Sorber's out. And then you also have Caleb Williams, who has a concussion. I believe, is out. Like that's another sort of rotational piece in the front court for Georgetown. I think he's out for sure. So, I also think that it's important to note that this isn't really a rivalry. It's really more of a one-way rivalry. Like Providence hates Georgetown because of the Ed Cooley situation. Like they despise Cooley. So they want to beat Georgetown to stick it to Greg Cooley. It's really not like a rivalry. Providence cares far more about this game, in my opinion, from like a we dislike this team standpoint than Georgetown cares about Providence. And I think it's why Providence has sort of done well in this matchup since Cooley's gone to Georgetown, because he betrayed them. They hate him. And so Providence does get up for this game, and you're going to see like, oh, well, so Cooley's mom passed away. He's going to coach tonight. I don't think that makes it any less important for Providence to win this game. So I still kind of give Providence a slight edge for that. The other reason I give Providence an edge here is I have a good friend who went to Providence, very close to Providence basketball, always does my preview with me prior to the season. He texted me last week before the Xavier game, and he's like, listen, Providence has 4 starters out. They're just in an awful spot. They've played so many close games recently. They've got nothing tonight. And sure enough, he was right about that. Providence got run out by Xavier. Final score was not indicative of what a blowout that was. It was just, by the second half, Providence had no chance in that game. And they came back over the weekend and got a very important win over Villanova. Like, I believe Providence was a slight underdog over the weekend. So to win that game against Villanova and snap the losing streak gives Providence serious momentum coming into this game. And also, they're now getting a couple of those guys back that missed last week. So, they're still banged up as well, but they're not quite like walking wounded like they were a week ago against Xavier. And they're coming off of a very good result against Villanova. So something to build off of. So, I just think that the interesting thing too about Providence is like their remaining schedule is manageable, but there's opportunities for good wins. And I think like if you're Providence, like you can get excited about potentially making a run, especially if you can win here. They've got a game coming up against Marquette. They've got a home game against UConn. Like there's some names on there, but it's also very manageable. Home game against DePaul. I believe they closed the year out with Xavier, another winnable game. So I don't hate the vibe with Providence coming off of the win over Villanova. And again, I'll go back to what I said at the top. If Sorber is out for Georgetown, which I believe he will be, Providence should easily be a favorite in this game, whether it be a slight favorite or not. They should at least be -1. So even if you missed earlier, like clients for me got 3.5 when I released it this morning, even if you missed that good number, I still think taking plus money with Providence makes all the sense in the world because you'll probably have a good amount of CLV. If once Sorber is officially ruled out of this game, I have a feeling this flips to Providence being a favorite. So you're probably still making a good bet and getting some line value there with the Friars. All right, so let's move on to game number 2. Another one that I'm considering now. I have not bet this yet because there's a pretty key injury in this one that I really would have to know before making this bet. And that's going to be Notre Dame against SMU. So the key injury would be Boopy Miller. He missed the most recent game for SMU. SMU got blown out by Wake Forest in that game, lost by 11. And he, in my opinion, is too important to play against SMU, really not knowing his status. Now, I don't really hate this. I still think Notre Dame could win this game either way. But still, like I would prefer a scenario where Miller is ruled out. Miller's in. I prefer Miller to be in and SMU to steam to get a better number because I do think this number kind of has Miller being out priced into it already. And that's my only real hang up with coming back with Notre Dame here. So of course I played Notre Dame, kind of like a late ad for me on Sunday, plus 7.5 against Louisville. They just played awful. Like, especially even after a decent start, they played awful. And after the game, Micah Shrewsbury came out and almost went anti-Mick Cronin to an extent. He, instead of ripping his team and saying he's the only one that cares, he ripped the media and basically was like, don't question my team caring. Like, he defended his team. I respect that. Like, it's a tactic. Even though Notre Dame deserves all the criticism, this team's awful. Like, they should be so much better than what they've put together this year. They deserve all the criticism, but Shrewsbury said, you know what? This is on me. Don't blame my players, whatever. All I know is it's really probably it was probably his sort of play at, let me see if I can get this team motivated for Wednesday night, home game against SMU. And again, I actually think it could work. And the thing is with Notre Dame, there is a lot of upside on this team. They shoot the ball well from 3 now. Matt Aloko has been out. and he's the kid that came over from Princeton. Like he was hitting like 48% from three. So that's tough to not have him in there. That kind of is a downgrade for me. Like just in general, like watching that game against Louisville on Sunday became very obvious that Burton is kind of looked at to do everything for Notre Dame. And everyone else is just kind of almost watching at times. There was times where you had guys, it felt like they were watching Burton just try to make plays, and they were behind the 3-point line ready to, I guess, there to catch and shoot, and they weren't ready to catch and shoot. Like that's the type of stuff that makes it really difficult to want to come back with Notre Dame here, because like I like the profile of them, hey, 7.5-point underdog. You just have to hang around. Here, you basically need them to win the game. And that's why it's kind of one that I haven't quite made it to the window with yet, even though I still think it's a great spot for Notre Dame. And I think there's upside with this Notre Dame team where it kind of makes sense to buy in with them toward the end of the season. Like, the offense isn't statistically isn't that bad. It's just you watch them and a lot of times they look lost. And now I'm starting to, as I kind of like sort of dig into this game, I'm asking myself, is Iloko so important to this team that maybe I shouldn't bet on Notre Dame without him? And so that's kind of what kept me off, that and the fact that I've got 4 other games, locked in today. One of them, which we already talked about, being Providence. So that's what I'll leave you with today. 4% client play, which was Providence plus 3.5. And again, I still like it at the current number. And then a lean to Notre Dame plus 1.5 right now. If SMU takes a bunch of money, and the theory would be if Miller is in, and because of that, SMU gets bet up to the point where they're all of a sudden like a 3.5-point favorite, then I might think about coming back with Notre Dame because I think you'd have the appropriate line value. Without him, Notre Dame's arguably a better bet from a matchup standpoint. But the problem is the line value is already sucked out at 1.5, and it would be sucked out further with Notre Dame likely going off like -1. So I think that one's going to remain a lean, but we've got a client play for you. Providence plus 3.5. It's a 4% play. And I'll be back tomorrow for more On the Clock. 4 plays up on my page for today. Hopefully we can get it going, and we'll see you guys back here in the morning.